Welcome to the Global Business Women's Pod, brought to you by the Greater Houston Women's Chamber of Commerce. I am Susan Dyson and proud to be the CEO, President, and founder of the Chamber. Please join us for this empowering podcast every Thursday at 6 p.m.
All right, our last topic of the day. I'm going to introduce to you Pearl Chu, who is also the former board chair of the Greater Houston Women's Chamber of Commerce for last year. She also started this summit last year at SLB. Woohoo! So this is year 2, which is exciting. We're bringing it back, women in tech. And we want to make sure that we continue the momentum. So back to what some of the panelists says, give us feedback. What worked? What didn't? What stood out for you? What other topics would you like to hear? Because I'm sure Susan will have Pearl continue to do this every year, right, Pearl? Yeah. Okay, so Pearl, I mentioned, is the former chair of the Women's Chamber, but also at SLB is the director of technical domains and university relations. And she's going to lead a panel through women as change makers driving innovation.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay? I'm so excited to be a part of this second year event. It was a really labor of love last year. Thank you for SLB for being here and helping sponsor. Love seeing all the women from our IT digital, and Danny, one of the male ally that we have from our HR. Great. My panel is just phenomenal. I'm going to be super quick on introductions because their titles will just already tell you it's amazing. We have had amazing speakers, amazing panelists. I'm going to sit down because the chair is kind of high, so I'm going to make sure I don't fall before I start to call on my panelists to join. So I'm going to start off with Cara Pilecki. Cara, where are you? Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Cara is the Chief Information Officer and Senior Vice President at ABS, American Bureau of Shipping. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd also like to welcome up Myra Davis. Myra is Senior Vice President and Chief Information Innovation Officer at Texas Children's Hospital. I was just talking to her out front, and she said she's the head of everything technical, basically. Welcome. Ramya Narayaswamy, excuse me. Ramya is the Director of Data Science and Analytics at Comcast. Fantastic. Welcome. We also have Roberta Schwartz. Roberta is the Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer from Houston Methodist. Fantastic. Welcome, Roberta. And finally, we have Roger Rohatgi, VP and Global Head of Design and Change Management at BP. Roger, welcome. And we all have to say thank you to Roger for the breakfast that he sponsored. Y'all, please.
And Roger's bringing his A game with that jacket and those shoes.
Yes.
Lisa, did you check that out? Oh, no, he's looking good.
Welcome,
right,
welcome. So we are going to be really tight on time, so I'm going to go straight into it. And if y'all have anything that you want to jump in and dialogue, please do. I'm going to start off with Roberta. Roberta, in your experience of being a leader in your area, obviously she's had an amazing career to get to this point. What do you see as the most important trait, possibly focused on women, looking at our audience, to have the most impact regarding technology and innovation?
Okay, so I will fess up straight into this group. For those of you who went through your entire careers, computer science majors, I don't know how to use my phone. I don't know how to use my TV. I was never able, for those of you who are old enough, to videotape one program while watching another one. It was not possible in my world. So my entry into tech is much later in my career, meaning that I spent my entire career in consulting, in operations, in healthcare, both on the physician side and on the hospital side. Myra and I are probably the opposite ends of the spectrum, totally. So I am an operator turned passionate about tech to solve some of the problems that were unsolvable problems in my past. And looking for policy to solve things, looking for other things to solve things. What I've learned is that if you understand a problem and you meet the tech solution that can solve that problem and you marry them up, the largest efforts are that not, please don't be offended, right? Sometimes the tech is the easy part, the change management is the hard part, right? So everyone's shaking their head, right? And so what I have when marrying up, 30 years of influencing people in change management and moving and improving the world, you recognize that the marriage has to be of the tech side and the operations side. So you can come at it from either, but having both skill sets becomes exceedingly important at basically using technology to improve the lives for us, of our patients, and our caregivers.
That's awesome. Can you do me a favor? Make sure you guys put those mics. I want everybody in the back. In the back row, you hearing? You got to hold it right.
So you
If
got to
it's
hold
on,
it closer.
you got to hold it like this. Like you're a rock star, like a rapper.
Okay, I did say that I failed technology. Right?
You did mention that.
Hear
I
that.
can't help you out. Yeah.
And usually I'm so damn loud I don't need a microphone, so I'm kind of stunned. But there you go. All right, passing it on.
Just make sure all of you put it close to your mouth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's move on, Ramya. With the Incredibles, that we've talked a lot about AI. I didn't want to focus just on AI. It could be really any technical domain, but around AI impacting all industries, we heard it from our previous panel. Do you have any specific focus for our audience on how to embrace, how it will shape our industries and society going forward? What insights can you give to our audience?
Sure. So couple of things, right? One is concerted effort in training and education. The AI community is open source. There's a lot of stuff that you can learn online. So invest the time in learning, and then dedicated hiring. If you want to be set apart, you want to invest in your resources who do data science and AI stuff. And it's not just someone with a degree, but with practical experience as well. And it's a full-scale AI, like from getting data to analyzing the data. You need to ask questions to the data and understand your problems and connect the two. And then build rapid experimenting prototypes. Like there's so much AI tool stack out there. You want to experiment what works for you, what works for your company, what works for your problem. So build experimenting prototypes. That's quick. You're not investing too much resources. And then I think Heather mentioned about the ethics, right? You want to use AI responsibly within guardrails because you can easily go off guardrails. And then lastly, what's most important for me is explainability. Like if you cannot explain what you have built, it's like a sausage factory. You need to know what goes in, what happens, what comes out. If you cannot explain those pieces, then you've lost your stakeholder, your customer. So knowing what you can with the data and the models is very important. And embrace the change. Like AI is scary, but it has a lot of potential. So use where it can help you and embrace the change and be relevant.
Great. Roberta, we were talking about embracing change when we were talking in terms of, do you have anything you might want to add? Like how do I grew up as a mechanical engineer, and I don't think I was embracing change for decades because I like to have the solution well defined before I knew how to go forward. How do you encourage people to really, either one of you, really make a change?
So I have, how many people have seen the video, The First Follower? Okay, a few people. I would encourage you all to go back and watch it. It's actually one of my favorite videos. And it's I will not demonstrate. You're wearing the type of outfit you could demonstrate it. Okay, we could do it together. But so the first person, right? The first person stands up and they make a fool of themselves at a festival, right? You have seen it. Anybody seen it? Now you're recognizing it, right? The first person makes a fool of themselves, right? But they're not important. They look like an idiot. Right? They look like an idiot. If you then start, doing this with me, right? And he starts dancing. He's not playing. All right, fine. Then he's actually the most important person because you recognize that the first person standing up saying, hey, you could use AI to actually, for us, we're doing one right now. We could abstract all of our data for the federal government using AI rather than having a human do it. Hey, congratulations. It's a beautiful savings. It's FTE reduction. It's what we need. We can move those FTEs and use them for better quality purposes. So our hospital's like, we raise our hands, we're doing it. And the rest, we have 7 other hospitals, and they're looking at us like, really? Okay, well, the minute the next hospital picks up and says, hey, we're interested, you go from like lone crazy people to like, oh, I'm interested. And so that's that concept of like in any process, the first person who, if you have 6 green people who want to do it one way and 1 red person who wants to do it a different way, they're the outlier. The minute you start to get the second one turns a different color and the third one turns a different color, it changes the dynamic. So you just have to like keep at it and stick at it until you get that first follower who's willing to follow you in the crazy dance. Come on, man. And then you keep building on it. That's at least my always an analogy I use.
Yeah.
I have a comment to add. I also think that it's much better to put yourself in the position of being ready to take a growth mindset or an opportunity mindset to make a change when there's technology or new technology in play. If you put yourself in a protectionary or too cautious or going to wait, you end up being the 7th or 8th hospital, right? And it's much better. Maybe you're not a daredevil, maybe you don't want to be 1st or 2nd, but it's still better to be 3rd or 4th as opposed to 7th or 8th.
Yeah. And for my experience dealing with a lot of technical people in SLB, I would say technical mindset folks who analyze, are very thorough, I think we're more cautious in general. So I'm always pushing myself to feel a little uncomfortable. Like my questions aren't very well organized with this group and it's making me feel uncomfortable, but it's good practice, right?
I think they're very organized.
I danced.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Very impressive.
You did not expect that.
Didn't expect that one, yeah. Good dance. Okay, so then we have to talk to the gentleman in the jacket. Roger. Roger, you have a super interesting background in TV, film, and design. Why don't you just tell us a little bit more how you went from that and you ended up at BP and what you're working on in your role as global head of design?
Yeah, well, I would like to say it was my dance moves, that got me there, but Roberta stole the show for sure. So no, it's really great to be here, and thank you, Pearl. That's a great question. So I think, television, film, all that, how did I get to BP? You're right. It's kind of crazy. I didn't know or think that I would be in the energy sector. My father was in that business for 50 years. I was like, didn't know if that was where I was going to end up. And television and film was an interesting time. I remember writing and producing a film after I had left U of H. Shout out to Valenti School of Communication, Valenti, woo woo. And when I graduated from there, in media, I got a chance to, I wrote a film and ended up getting a chance to produce that and won an International Film Award for that. And it really changed the course of my life. And as I moved into television, I got a chance to work on some pretty fun projects and shows and things. Any of you remember that show, The Real World? Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. And so there was lots of really cool things, but there was this emergence of digital that was happening at that time. So imagine being able to take digital and merge it with TV. And so I was able to jump into a group and had the idea to pioneer the first social television network in the United States. And we partnered with people like Mark Burnett, who created Survivor and The Voice and those different shows. And it was quite interesting. And we created interactive television, which was very different than what people were experiencing with this lean back experience from television. And some of those designs and things that we worked on at that time ended up going into working with Twitter into the app called Vine. And if anybody remember that, which is kind of precursor to TikTok. And so I guess I'm sorry too for that. And so it was a really interesting journey because there, along the way, as digital rose, I found myself working with more and more brands that were looking to go through a digital transformation. I remember working with anybody from Motorola to brands like White House Black Market, Chico's, and Soma, of all brands. And they were going through a digital transformation. And so being a creative director and guiding that from a design side and a digital side was interesting because they all were trying to do one thing. And the reason I bring this up was whether it was television or film, whether we were designing for the big silver screen or the app in your hand or even the small screen on your wrist, all these brands had the same challenge. And that was, how do you create experiences for people? How do you engage people? How do you reach people? And how do you put humans at the center of the equation, right? And so BP was no different. And so they reached out to me at the end of 2019. And they said, hey, would you come here? It was on LinkedIn. They pinged me. And I was like, wait, what? And so I talked to them and I said, why would you need somebody like me? They said, well, we're going through a digital transformation. And they said, we got all this cool technology, just like here at Chevron. There's, AR, VR, XR, MR, AI. And I said, great, but that's right. I think there's a dance to that one too. But the question I asked was, how are you putting humans at the center of that technology, right? You have all these technological solutions, but how are we really designing for humans' needs and how can people use that? And so I ended up becoming the first design leader in BP's 100-year history. I joined in February of 2020. There were lots of designers there, but none of them were badged on a perm basis. And really starting from scratch, building up the discipline of design and then change management in BP. As you mentioned, change. People would reach out to me right at the beginning that I joined, and they would say, hey, we really need your help. We know you're doing user experience, and we have an app that we launched, and nobody's, but we have a problem, and nobody's using it. And I said, oh, really? Well, what was your goal? They were like, well, to launch it. And I was like, well, you did it, yes. But nobody adopted it. So we have to work on that user experience. You really got to understand why people really need that app and why it's important. And so there's a whole journey and a story that you tell there. And so now I built this team all over the world. We oversee over 200,000 interfaces across the globe, hundreds and hundreds of apps. It's everything from B2B to B2C. To B2G, which I call business to governments, helping whole cities become sustainable, as well as B2E, which is all the enterprise software across the globe, and then what I call B2Me, which is the employee and the employee experience, because you can't have a really great customer experience if you don't have a solid user experience. You can't have a really good solid user experience if you don't have a really authentic employee experience. And that really makes a good human experience. We call ourselves HXD, Human Experience Design. And so it's been really exciting because we're doing some innovative things. We're pushing the limits on how we design for not just people, but our planet and sustainability, and also how we leverage those technologies to understand humans better. So leading efforts in generative AI, of course, in the metaverse. We just launched with Copilot in the metaverse. We're the first partner and one of the big top partners in the world with Microsoft on Microsoft Mesh for the metaverse, and first in energy. But also in AI, we're looking at some really interesting things.
So, I'm just going to pull us a little bit back to the topic on what we wanted to talk about. There's so many great themes, but I'm going to read my little tagline again to remind us. This is discover the power of diversity. There's so many lenses of diversity. Being a woman is just one lens of being unique, let's say. Inspiring women to embrace change and growth in the tech sector and beyond. So, more generally, Roger, how do you see the future looking with this new space that, human-centric design, and how will we be living where we may need to adapt how we are going forward?
Well, it's another great question. I think, so some of this is, I'll tell you what we're kind of doing in our company, some of the latest stuff, and then I'll tell you some of my own personal thoughts. Because I think we all can, realize that we can't really predict the future, but we can, maybe ask AI to do that for us. It could be kind of scary. But so I found myself really trying to find ways that we can leverage AI to understand our people, our customers, and our planet better. And so we began to create what we call, and some of you have experienced and heard of digital twins. Digital twins are virtual copies or clones of a system or a setup, like a big refinery. It could be a myriad of different things that might happen in an organization, and you want to be able to virtually do that, right? I think. And so digital twins and digital copies, we started looking at how could we create synthetic humans, digital copies of our customers, and be able to ask them questions and to learn from them, and what would they be thinking of, and how would they interact if we fed them all this data on the future of smart cities and the future of what we're doing for our planet. And so we've been leveraging synthetic humans with some of the work that we've been doing across the globe, and it's been really exciting to see that. And I started thinking about what that could mean for the future. And so I know that everybody in this room has incredible gifts, aspirations. There's all sorts of kind of different skills that you have, talents that you have. And I was looking and exploring this word. You might be called a multi-potentialite. You have multiple potential. And I started thinking about the multi-potentiality of what we all have and what we all have to offer the world. And AI has been a way for us to augment our understanding of our customers and the things that we do. But imagine in the future, as we continue to develop AI and we develop this, I guess, ability, imagine having not just digital twins of a business or an organization, or customers, but imagine a digital version of yourself and a virtual clone or a digital copy or digital twin. And then you could then go to a Teams call that you didn't really want to join, and that could go there for you. And it can not just, take notes, but it can answer questions and talk just like I would talk. And imagine then you would have let's say we do get into the metaverse stuff with VR, and let's say I have a version of myself there that could be there, and I might be dressed differently, maybe even different jacket. And there's a whole version of myself there. And there's another version of myself that takes care of my bills for me and does things that I just don't want to do. And there's another version that I've trained to do other things for me and other skills and tasks in my job. And so ultimately, you might find that companies might hire you not just for you, but for all the different versions of yourself that are out there working along with you. And brands may not just be catering to you, but they might be catering to all the different versions of you, whether you like this style or that style, or whether you dance, this way, or we dance like this. So there's a whole different aspect of the future when you think about it that AI may not, replace, but it might augment and enhance and multiply or give multi-potentiality to all of our lives to be able to do something beyond just what the capabilities that we have today.
So interesting. So it reminds me of what Lisa was saying. It's the different versions of you out there, and you can use that to your advantage in different situations, and kind of having this vision of different virtual twins, digital twins of ourselves, different versions, I think is a very freaky thing to think about. But our life in the future may look different than it does today. So it's just for food for thought. All right, Myra, let's go to you. The head of everything technical at Texas Children's Hospital. I love that title. What is your best advice for people seeking to build their brand on being a STEM technical expert, whether it be around AI or any other technical domain, for best personal success, future growth, etc.?
Yeah, I'm going to weave in everything that we talked about so far that has been talked about. But first, I want to say, Roger, I love that vision, and the cyber hat in me freaks me out with your vision. So I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going to start with where I started in my career. I was a software developer, so I am a computer science major, opposite my friend here. And I started as a software developer and really realized about 6 months into it, I did not like sitting behind the screen and just coding. It was the most boring thing ever. And more importantly, what I was developing, thank you, thanks for the heads up too. What I was developing really was not getting fulfilled for the customer. And there was translation gaps in between, which speaks to the end user experience that was happening. And over time, it became important to me to truly develop for people who really wanted to use the products that I was developing. Therefore, I stepped away from the desk and became more of a translator and understanding the perspective of the customer and what it is that they're trying to solve, and then really educating them along with developers to solve it. So the first skill is around communication. That's key. The second one is really having empathy and understanding and listening, not ready to speak, but just listening. And more importantly, being able to facilitate a conversation that says, what exactly is it you're trying to solve, so that you can work with others to assist you in solving it. Tech is exciting. It's very exciting. It's disruptive. It's challenging, and I agree with you, don't talk about how the sausage gets made, because nobody really cares about that. They just want the end product, and they want the sexiness of that end product. And so I think the excitement of all of it, having an end user experience, really educating and understanding the change that you need to solve, what problem you want to solve, and not communicating in a way that's so geeky and techy, is really the skills that you just develop over time. And that's the secret sauce. Yes, being a technologist, having an undergrad in computer science and a graduate in software design and development, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean, right? It means just having a basic understanding of it. But more importantly, where I thrive and where I get excited is really seeing how technology can be enabled to solve real problems in healthcare at Texas Children's.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'd like to add just my personal lens on top of it, because I totally resonate. I totally agree with everything you say, is the communication, but it's not just the communication of explaining what you're doing and the outcome, but being able to adapt that communication on who you're speaking to. It's super important to craft your message. I was telling someone who's an advisor in our technical community, I said, when you talk to an executive, I had 15 minutes with them and I finished my 5 points in 9. And they appreciate that. Being able to be concise and crisp and precise in what you're trying to say is really important as you're moving up. You can go into much more detail with folks who care about the details, but you have to adapt your communication heavily based on who you're talking to.
And I think that's the translation part of it, because not everybody that you're speaking to or is trying to solve a problem for is an executive.
Right.
Really, sometimes the executives think they know the problem. But like I say, do you have a user ID? Do you log into the system that the real people use?
Yeah.
Let's go talk to them.
Mhm.
And really what we discovered together is the problem is significantly different than what was assumed it to be.
By the
And so
executive.
having the adaptability and translation of it, and to just relate to anyone. It doesn't matter who they are. Titles don't matter. You're really trying to solve a problem. That's what matters.
I love the word translation.
Mhm.
Great.
I've experienced a lot of global differences in culture
Yeah.
for that perspective of what is concise. Right.
Mhm.
I would work for a company one time where we had evolved to where we didn't have a beginning to our emails. You just went straight in. No, dear Cara, you just went straight in, right? Then I went to another culture that was viewed very offensive, very harsh, very abrupt.
Mhm.
So I had to change my email to have like a whole paragraph about how are you doing? Hope you're well, blah, 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 blah. After that, I'm really wanting to say.
Very true. Very true culture. We'll keep going with you, Cara. I really love talking about the power of diversity. I believe in it with respect to leadership, with respect to finding innovation, with respect to designing solutions. And I want to just get y'all's thoughts, maybe everyone's thoughts, on how to really become influential in the space of driving the power of diversity, no matter where we're working or how we're influencing.
And I'll take that one. As I was thinking about the answer to this question, I thought I would frame it with the answer and then kind of tell you a story about why that's the answer. So my answer to this is context building with preparation for action, changing yourself and changing others. Context building, preparing for action, changing yourself and changing others. And I'll frame it in a question I was asked recently. That was an impossible question from my boss. I had just been explaining and giving him an update on our IT strategy and our progress on our IT strategy. And a huge part of that IT strategy was me changing the culture of my existing organization. And he asked me, how are you going to do that? I'm like, okay, that's a really big question. I don't know if I can really answer that in this conversation that we're happening right now. And a million things went through my mind about how to answer that question. This is not how I answer that question, but this is how I'm going to answer that question to you. My answer is a million different ways. You've got to go figure out and understand and listen and understand the culture of the organization that you have by understanding it from a million different points, and then take a million different actions, and then hone and address a million different actions again and again, and hone it as well. And I'll describe some examples from my past. So my first C-level role, I picked up my family of 4 kids and my husband, and I moved from Chicago to Abu Dhabi for my first C-level role, right? So I'm working in a new country, kind of a new industry for me, completely new culture. There were 50 different cultures, and at a new level. I'd never been a CIO before, right? Huge amounts of changes. And it was in nuclear power, right? An extremely complex industry, lots of regulation. And I'm bringing I was the first employee of IT for this company, right? So I'm bringing nuclear power to a country that's never had it before. And I needed to not be embarrassed to tell you about it someday, right? Handing the keys to a nuclear power plant to someone that's never done that before. And I need to not be embarrassed to tell you about that today. So I had to bring something extremely technical to a community that was brand new. And it took a million different conversations and a million different understandings of people and nature and honing and adjusting and over time to change me. I had a lot of changing I had to do myself, right? And to change others to get that kind of influence to happen.
I know, Raman, we had talked about this too, around the power of diversity. What does that mean?
So diversity is something that's inbuilt, right? So I went through this exercise as part of an executive curriculum where they asked some basic questions, and it was a diversity program, so it wasn't something that I was blindsided. But after the program or after the presentation, what I walked away is, we're all women, we all come from diverse backgrounds, but within us, we have some inbuilt images or vision when somebody asks a question. So diversity is basically not to walk into a room thinking or having an opinion or a judgment about someone or a question or a topic. That's the power of being open, right? And as a fun experiment, I kind of did that with my kid and my nieces. I was actually amazed that they didn't think the same way I thought. And that's the new generation, that they are instilling these values from the get-go.
I would agree with that. I think the best teachers for me in diversity have been my kids.
Oh,
And just really having an open mind.
I need to listen to my kids more.
Yeah, you should. You should.
Gosh.
It's really powerful. Really powerful.
How are we on time? Because I actually would like to open up questions to the audience if we can, and then I'll close it out with a certain.
I will allow that.
Will we allow
Yes.
that? Will we allow that? Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes. We have mic runners actually, so we're highly organized. Thank you, Julie Flowers.
This is for Roger. So coming from the world of media and entertainment and then going into energy, natural resources, what are some, and also being a person of color, what are some of the lessons learned from, speaking of diversity of thought, but then also obviously the diversity that we most often think about, which is, you know, sort of our external wrapping?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. It's a tough one. I think when stepping into this, I guess from personal experience, I think when you step into a company or anything, especially a totally separate industry, or any room for that matter, where you don't know anybody, you have to believe that everybody there has something really special to offer too. And you have to believe in them as much as you hope they believe in you. But you have to believe in yourself that they want you there. There's a feeling sometimes that we get that we may not feel like we're wanted there, right? And we get into a imposter syndrome kind of mode where we feel like maybe we don't know if we deserve even why we got here or where we got to this place. And, you know, nobody knows your past or my past or our past, but we've all, you know, gone through different things to get where we are today. And we're still going through things, right? And so I think it's understanding, you know, just knowing who we are, but also know where you come from, right? My father is Indian, but my mom is Spanish. And she came from Mexico, and they met here in Houston, actually. I grew up here before I moved away, and then BP brought me back. But I think that just being able to be a part of those different cultures was a big thing for me, and just but it also was an identity crisis growing up. But if you've never had a curry burrito, it's phenomenal. You know? I highly recommend it. Depending on the space, there you get it.
Okay, my name is Didi Budiharto. My question is, how do you balance imposter syndrome and not tooting your own horn? Because as female in technology or the underrepresented group, sometimes you are the first of something. For example, I'm the first female chair for the American Petroleum Institute IT Security Committee. But I don't want to toot my own horn until someone else mentioned that. At the same time, I wanted to send that message that you can do it to inspire others. I'm still struggling balancing that, you know, straddling these two worlds. to be humble and yet to, hey, advocate for yourself. Thank you.
I'm not good at that, so I'll listen to their answers.
You know, sometimes actually there's a little bit of it that you don't know how many people are watching you until later in your career, right? Later in your life, later in your career, and people will say like, I was always watching you. Like, don't underestimate the fact that you're the first female. There are a whole bunch of women watching you, just knowing that you did it, now knowing that they can do it too, like just straight off the bat. That being said, what you want to do is take, to me, the opportunity to say, where else can I represent what I'm doing in other places? And then they start introducing you in that way. So I can tell you, you know, standing up and basically saying, hey, like, I'm a technical person, like, we're now doing innovation. At first, everyone, whether it was this or earlier in my life when I started an organization called the Young Survival Coalition for young women who get breast cancer, I can tell you that in all these different experiences that I've had, people have just, I call it the pat you on the head syndrome, like, oh, that's so cute, like, look what you did. And it takes a while for people to take you seriously, like in that role, in that way. And you just have to, you kind of have to develop a level of Teflon where you ignore the stupidity of others. I mean, how many times, you know, in my life, and I don't even notice it. So admittedly, like, some of you may notice it more than others. Has someone said to me, wouldn't you rather be home raising your kids? And I was like, ouch. Well, okay, I don't think they'd be healthy if I was home raising them. Like, that would be a disaster, you know? Or people say stupid things, and I'm like, I just chalk it up to their stupidity, not like they're hurting me. That's just, they're dumb. You know, it's like those kind of things. You just have to like just Teflon them off and just keep saying, I am so and so. Here's what I want to represent my organization at next, and then be the presence. And then when they introduce you, by the time you've been introduced in this title, I still pinch myself, like, who would make me Chief Innovation Officer? She introduced me that way. Now you think I'm important. Okay. Anybody think I now know how to use my iPhone? No. You know, so that is a, like, that's a kind of, at least the way I think about it. How's that, Myra?
No, you're really not telling the truth. She's really good.
I'm sure.
You know, I would add to what Roberta said, because I'm horrible at, I don't tell people who I am. I'm Myra Davis. That's who I am. That's my name. And the rest of that, it comes with the territory, but it can be gone just like that. And so at the end of the day, I'm still Myra Davis. What's important to me is the people that are on my team that I work with and their ability to continue to grow. That's where I pride myself more than anything. I don't really try to focus on Myra Davis, whatever my title is today and my name today, because it can be really horrible in the next hour. I think that's really important, not focusing on that so much and just staying true to who you are. That matters more than anything, and people are watching. People are watching.
I'm going to just add one thing too. I know I'm a moderator, but I'm going to answer too. Being Chinese American, humility is a trait. I'm sure it's similar in many other cultures. It's the trait that is valued. Mm-hmm. You know, same thing in Norway. Norwegians have a Norwegian word that if you're bragging on yourself, it's almost like a dirty word, right? So culturally, I think we are leaning calibration-wise on over humility. And you can learn on how to put yourself, again, a little bit in discomfort to say what things you've done. And so I used to hide good things that I did. You know, I would used to not tell people what kind of roles I had because I felt like it was the right thing to do. So being brutally objective on what you do and how you state it, I think will come through, and staying authentic on how you say it yourself is the way to do it without tooting your horn, you know. Realize your calibration, though, is on the side that if you feel a little uncomfortable, you're still probably humble. It's okay.
I'd like to add one more thing. To your point, I think we all have self-doubt. And I would say if we don't have self-doubt, that means we're not pushing the boundary. So being in an uncomfortable space is okay. And you kind of, every drop makes an ocean. So you can be the first, but you are bringing a change.
Thank you. Questions? I think we have time for another.
One more. Yep.
Yep.
Way in the back. Ooh, way in the back. Someone give. Oh, she got the mic already.
You got the mic.
You ready to go? I love it.
Hello. Oh, yes, I'm there. Okay. It being in the back, nosebleed seats, I'm accustomed to that. And sometimes they can't hear us in the back. I want to make sure you can hear me. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for being here today and sharing all of your best practices and wisdom. My name is Tonda Hall, and I work with Perscolas, which is an organization that provides tuition-free tech training. Shameless plug, not to tout, but as I'm sitting here listening to you and just thinking about the journeys that you have taken, I'm thinking about learners that sit in the seats where we teach. And for the population that we serve, our goal is to diversify the face of tech, so unlock potential for women and people of color and veterans. And so our focus is there. 2/3 of our population do not have degrees. Some of them are going into career changes, as you spoke of, Roger, which I know yours was a little bit different. Sharp jacket, by the way. And I'm just thinking, how open are you all as CIOs and people in different positions working in industries in tech? How important and critical is it to have a degree in this specific industry? Thank you.
Let me start with that because I had this conversation a lot with youth in underserved communities, and I spend a lot of time talking to kids who decide, do I go to college? Do I not go to college? What do I do here? And I say, first of all, you need to have a passion for something, and you need to have a skill. And no one said you had to have a 4-year degree. You can have a 2-year degree. You can have a trade. You can get a certification, but you have to have intent and purpose for a skill. So I think that's really important. Having nothing, it's not an either or. It's something that must be had. And historically, it's always been a 4-year degree, but lately you don't need that completely. So I think that's important. However, what's important is as you continue to grow in your career and become a leader or become more skilled in your profession, that degree will become more apparently needed, whether you like it or not. So I think it's important to have some foresight about that decision. But out of the gate, you should look at what is that something that you're looking for.
Great question. And then if you want to learn more, that's skills-based hiring. Former job I had was head of global talent acquisition at Chevron, and I can answer that question. You did a beautiful job. I'm going to quote you, but it's an and world. You have the skills, you don't necessarily need the paper. However, the paper is important as well. Yeah, but it's not either or. It's an and. Follow your path, follow your purpose. I want to thank everybody on.
I'm going to give 30 seconds for each of you. Any final key message that you want to share with this audience? 30 seconds each. Let's start with you, Roger.
Oh, gosh, okay. Look, again, just so wonderful to be here with all of you. Really, at the end of the day, if you think about anything from anything I said, it's really it's about really you. You are the difference maker. It's about putting humans at the center of the equation of everything that we do. It's not about the technology. It's not about AI. It's not about all the cool hype and all the cool things that are happening. It's really about how do we make things better for people and, of course, our planet. And again, it's really about what you do with that too. And thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take it from a very female angle, which is we stand on the shoulders of those women who came before us, who charted paths. And if you haven't seen a movie called Iron Jawed Angels, it's a really good place to start. Those women were at a place where they stood outside the White House for a year, basically day and night, to get us the ability to vote. That is 100 years old. If we're standing in a place thinking of where we can be and what we can take over, that just means that you are building that future for us, and you are building that future for your daughters and the women who come after you. So know how proud you should be of what you are doing now and how much you are building that for the future of the next generation.
What I would add is technology, AI, or any other technology is not here to take our jobs. It's actually going to make our jobs do better and faster so we can tackle more problems. So my advice would be embrace change.
Yeah, I would say don't overthink it and embrace the adversity. have fun with it, entertain it, challenge it, tease it, but have fun with it, embrace it.
So looking back at my professional and personal career in life, I feel like it's always just been a scramble. It's been really hard, right? It's not easy, right? And I think of that Steve Jobs quotes where you look back at what you've done and then the pieces fall together, right? But I also saw another quote recently that gave me some solace to how hard things were. And it was, why do you insist on always taking the hard road? And then the response was, you think I see another road? All right. That's what I'm feeling like. So it's okay.
Thank you so much. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Please.
Wonderful. Turn around real quick. Take a photo real quick.
I love that.